as I was just introduced, I'm the director of product management. I've never been a professional web developer, but I've always worked with developers. I've always loved hacking on web stuff, and I think that for people like me who have always been sort of adjacent to technology, but not like always like knee deep in it, this is sort of like who it's for. Um, some interesting stats. Before I started learning 11T in January this year, I had maybe built one site over 5 years. It was a Gatsby site, and it made me cry, and I just sort of like never went back to it. Never wanted to do anything for quite a while. Didn't want to update anything. Was just fearful I'd break stuff. And then for various reasons, I started following Zach on Twitter, and I was like, well, this seems cool. I should give it a shot. And I've actually built maybe 5 sites over 5 months. So that's been really, really fun. And so I started thinking, like, why is that? Why is it that I got so far with this one tool, but not with others? Like, I've tried tons of different frameworks, sites, generators. And I think that for me, it's that it was just that it feels so much harder, not easier to build a site in 2024 compared to 2000 when I guess I built my very first website. Hacking around, like changing the HTML and the CSS and stuff, and being like, this is really fun. Um, but then at some point, it stopped feeling fun, or it started to feel like it was harder to find the fun things. And getting to build sites with 11T just brought back some of that early joy. So then I started thinking, well, why is that? And how can we help other people feel that way? The same sense of, okay, this is something cool that I want to learn again. My theory is that that's probably too much to learn. People are not sure where to pick up if you're not in industry. There are so many tools, so many frameworks. You kind of need to know a bit of JS to get going, to get anything done at all. A lot of things. There's also a lot of conflicting advice on what you should do, and a lot of this advice is about, how to get into the industry and how to become a web developer, how to make money. But many of us got into it because it was fun. So can it be fun again? So I actually really think so. I think that we can sort of tweak maybe through documentation and through the way we like approach tutorials to make Elementy approachable to people who are not web developers who don't think that they are. And sometimes I don't like the word like non-technical because it feels like it excludes people who don't feel that technical enough. And certainly for me, I think one of the reasons why I didn't really like go really knee deep into like web dev is because growing up, I was always told like, "Oh, you're a girl. You can't do math. You don't know how to do stuff. You shouldn't be a web developer." So, I do think that having like a more like inclusive like approach to things will help other people sort of feel like, "Hey, I really want to learn this, and this seems doable." Um, and so, like, when I announced that, "Hey, I'm moving off my microblog," I was using a microblog thing, which is really good, by the way, and I recommend it to a lot of people who don't know how to like build sites from scratch. Um, for my photography website, and someone emailed me and said, I went to microblog because you used it. It was really cool. Now that you're at 11T, I also want to try that, but I really don't know where to start. So, how do we get people to start here with 11T? So I think that this was the right tool because a lot of things are, like you said, like Zach said earlier, HTML first. Many things work as expected. It's not filtered through some opinionated thing. You can learn as much or as little as you want. So could we find a way to help people like, oh, here's a bunch of starters, here's where you deploy it, and if you want to know more, figure it out later. And we already have friendly communities, so how do we then sort of take that and go, maybe a different set of people who see themselves as not web developers need a different sort of like knowledge base or different sort of documentation or simplified versions of it, or they need to ask questions at like a beginner's sort of like happy hour sort of thing on Discord. Maybe there's some things we can do. So then I started thinking that what would have helped me, right? So just even how I got started in January when I was learning 11T, I found that I was referencing Stephanie's site, I was referencing Bob's site, I was referencing like docs like 11T from scratch, and so there's a lot of stuff that I kind of have to put together and figure out what worked for me, but maybe we can sort of help curate them really for someone who feels like an absolute beginner. Maybe we could have a far more opinionated walkthrough. Here's a bunch of starters, click here and host here. Like, sometimes there's decision paralysis. If we could sort of help to reduce that, then maybe people could get further with the idea that they can, if they can get some early success, then they might be inclined to want to try to learn even more. I also think that it would be cool to write more blog posts about things that I learned when I was learning web dev as well as Eleventy. Really, just centered on beginners. Like, there's a lot of content out there that obviously is like very centered at web developers. But what if we could talk about like why we picked this thing, why we use this tool, what you can do in like really simplified, accessible ways? I think that would be very explanatory and reach a far bigger audience. Um, Maybe there could be pairing or like a buddy system, and we could have a special channel just for like newbies to really come in here and get help. So those are just some ideas that came to my mind, and I'm presenting this so that we can discuss like what possible paths we could want to pick up in the future, and I certainly like volunteer myself for a part of it. And really, I'm interested in doing this because I think that it's important to spark joy again with the web. That right now, if the default option for someone who doesn't perceive themselves to be a developer is to, well, put up a Squarespace site, they don't have very much control. Um, I think it's very hard to go from that Squarespace pipeline to I'm actually going to learn to become a web developer or even just build stuff for fun pipeline. And so, how can we sort of help give people the tools, or at least like the handlebars, to get started again on this sort of journey? So, I personally want to see a world in which I can build things that are fun, maybe even pointless. I don't want to just be productive. I don't just want to like build like work things. I also want to build websites to, like, for example, review every taco I've ever eaten. I'm also someone who documents a lot of like Asian potato chips that I eat, and I'm like, someone would love an Asian potato chip website. And so, if I genuinely believe that learning basic eleventy would get empower me to do fun stuff like this, I think it will be the same for other people. So I'm putting myself out there as someone who wants to sort of help bridge this divide and to maybe work on new stuff with the team. We either in like writing more docs or blog posts to help other people get started. So that's all I have.